Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us also that we can learn from life and align ourselves better with your plan for us. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for coming today. And we continue our discussion on the Mahabharata. And so tomorrow and after tomorrow mornings, I'm trying to talk on the Bhagavatam. I'll continue a similar theme in the morning classes, where I'll talk primarily from the section of Bhishma speaking to Yudhishthir. And there we will be discussing on how to perceive Krishna's plan in our life. So right now we are discussing dharma more from our perspective. That okay, how do we make good choices? And we are focusing on our responsibility, using our intelligence and learning how to make good choices thereby. While that is undoubtedly important, it's equally, if not more important, to consider how Krishna is also acting in our lives. So basically, the way the scriptures explain it, that our life is like a human divine partnership. That it's our life journey, it is meant to be a human divine partnership. That we are human beings and God is with us. And while of course we are not partners with God in the sense of being equal partners, God is our master. But still, it is a relationship in which we also have to play a role. So if you consider at the end of the Bhagavad Gita in 18.78, what is the verse? Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. It says wherever there is Krishna and wherever there is Arjuna, there will be victory. There will be glory, there will be morality, there will be power. There will be fortune. Now, this verse raises a very, at one level, obvious question. Now, Krishna is Lakshmipati. Krishna is Vishnu Narayana, he is Lakshmipati. So wherever there is Krishna, there is victory. Isn't it? Wherever there is Krishna, there is fortune. So what is the need to mention Arjuna over there? Isn't it? At the end of the Gita, Sanjay could have said, wherever there is Krishna, there will be victory. And that would have been true. But the point of the Gita, the Gita's purpose, like every book has a particular purpose. And at one level, the Gita's purpose is to proclaim God's position. That how God is supreme, God is in charge. That is to proclaim God's position. While that is an important purpose, there is a second purpose which is even more important. That is to transform man's disposition. That once we understand God's position, and that understanding needs to transform our actions, our thoughts, our attitude of looking at life. So not just that God is great. God is great and I have an opportunity to be a part of God's team. That I as a part of God am a part of God's team. And I have an opportunity to be a part of God's team. And that inspires us enormously. So in our classes tomorrow morning and tomorrow day after tomorrow morning, I'll focus on this from the Bhagavatam, to understand God's position and understand God's role in our life. But what we are discussing from the Mahabharata perspective is that how we can make good choices. And one aspect about making good choices is also to accept that we will sometimes make bad choices. See, we are human beings, and as humans, there are two characteristics that we cannot ever give up. One is that we are finite, and the other is we are fallible. Finite means that we are situated at one place at one time. We are not present everywhere. We don't know everything. So we are finite. We can't know everything. And even with our finiteness, what we know, sometimes we misunderstand it. Sometimes we make misjudgments. So what happens is that we are finite and fallible. And that is why, because of these two, we will all make mistakes. So till now in our sessions, we discussed with respect to choices, our whole theme was how to make good choices. So first point we discussed was our overall attitude toward life. Look for how life is fair, not unfair to us. The second is we look for association. That what is the kind of association I am choosing and I am prioritizing in my life. That's what I discussed based on the example of primarily Karna and Duryodhana. Then yesterday's session was about analysis. Analysis to understand what is the right course of action. So here analysis was centered on this acronym ICE. We have to consider my intent, content and effect. So we have to do reasoning to decide. So even when I have a positive attitude, I look at what is fair in my life, even if I have good people around me, still ultimately I have to make decisions. See, even if we have our spiritual master, and our spiritual master is even accessible to us, still our Guru Maharaj cannot live our life for us. We have to live our life. And that means we take in wisdom from them, but we have to make decisions. Major decisions which will always consult senior devotees or whoever spiritual guides are there. But when we talk about association and guidance, I'll talk about this guidance more tomorrow. Guidance does not mean that we stop using our intelligence. Guidance is not about outsourcing our intelligence to someone else. It is not outsourcing our intelligence. Guidance means it's a resource for our intelligence. That Arjuna, that I am God, so just obey me, there's no need for you to think. If Krishna had wanted to do that, Krishna could have finished the whole Bhagavad Gita in 6 words. I am God, obey me, fight. Bhagavad Gita, Sampurnam. Krishna did not do that. So Krishna wanted to equip Arjuna's intelligence. Many reasons. One is that Krishna was also preparing Arjuna for times when Krishna would not be there right next to him. So, and Krishna wanted that message to be timeless. Krishna wanted the Bhagavad Gita to be a guidebook for life that people could use even when he is not personally present. So we see this in the aftermath of the Gita also. It is not that before shooting every arrow in the war, Arjuna is asking, Krishna, do I have permission to shoot this arrow? Do I have permission to shoot this arrow? Do I have permission to shoot this? No. Arjuna was major decisions, Krishna guided him. But the point is, ultimately we have to take our decisions. And of course, we want guidance. So how do we get that guidance? One is through analysis. And now, the fourth part I'll discuss today is acceptance. That acceptance means that we have to accept that I will make mistakes. Now, that does not mean that we justify our mistakes and we perpetuate our mistakes. I'll talk about what acceptance means and what it does not mean. This is our first session. And this is the fourth session. Acceptance that we will commit mistakes. So this and tomorrow's session evening also will be about acceptance, but a different kind of acceptance I'll talk about. So what does this mean? That sometimes we make some decisions, and after the decisions are made, then we realize, hey, this was a bad decision. Not only a bad decision, this was a terrible, terrible decision. So how do we live with ourselves at that time? What do we do? So there are two unhealthy ways in which you can go when we talk about acceptance. One is we reject our mistakes. We deny that we made a mistake. Reject our mistakes means reject that we made any mistakes. No, what I did was right. We try to justify. That is unhealthy. But the other is, this will keep us in denial. And this is bad. But the other is that we reject ourselves because of our mistakes. That is, I am a worthless person. I am a useless person. I am good for nothing. Reject ourselves because of our mistakes. And this can be actually even more dangerous. So this will lead to depression, this will lead to devastation, this will lead to self-hatred. So we could say rejecting our mistakes is Rajoguna, where we want to put on a pretense that I am such a good person, I am a clever person, I am a smart person, and rejecting ourselves because of our mistakes is Tamoguna, where we start beating ourselves, I am worthless, I am useless, I am good for nothing, and both of these are harmful. In different ways, but both of them are harmful. So why are we discussing this today? We are going to discuss about how Yudhishthir Maharaj came to terms with his actions in the gambling match. Now, let's look at it from 2-3 different perspectives. But first is the fallout. That when Yudhishthir was exiled, yesterday I did, because the class went too long, I was not able to tell all the details. Basically what happened, when Draupadi's disrobing didn't work out, still the Pandavas continued their plan. And then when Vidura was trying to get him to stop, but Dhritarashtra was not ready to stop. Nobody was ready to stop. But then Vidura told Dhritarashtra that the yajna fire, the sacrificial fire that you would always keep on in your court, has suddenly got switched off. And this is what he considered extremely inauspicious. And he said, this has gone too far, stop now. So then he told Draupadi that, if Gandhari or I have ever been kind to you, please remember that. And this game was just for testing, but it went too far. So to make amends, I ask you to have some boons. And she said that, release my husbands. Okay, but ask for something more. He says, give them back their weapons. And he said, ask for something more. He said, no, with their weapons, they will gain back whatever they want. Now, he said, a Kshatriyani should not ask for more than 2 favors at any time. So he says, no, I want to give you more. I'll give you back the entire kingdom back. And basically, he tried to settle the issue. Because he also realized that Duryodhana has gone very far. And then the Pandavas went back, but then Duryodhana came. What did you do? He said, I had already got the whole kingdom, and you undid the whole work. He said, no, I saved your life. Now what you had done to the Pandavas, they would have destroyed you if I had not stopped, if I had not intervened. He said, do you think that just because you give the kingdom back to them, they are going to forgive us now? Already there was an enmity between us, And it was just hidden. Now it is out in the open. At this very moment, the Pandavas will be planning, scheming to destroy us. And therefore, we need to destroy them before they destroy us. And call them back for a gambling match. And in this gambling match, we will send them into exile for 13 years. And during that time, I will consolidate allies. I have many friends, but I'll expand my friend circle. And then we will be strong enough to fight with them. Right now, if you let them go, they have all their forces, they will attack and destroy us. So no, Yudhishthira will not do that. He said, Bhima is enraged with me, Arjuna is enraged with me. Yudhishthira feels humiliated, you will not be able to stop them. So he pressured him, he scared him, and they called him for another gambling match. Now Yudhishthira was also still in such a daze. What had happened? He was enraged, he was shocked, he was dazed. Somehow he was compelled, he felt compelled, and he came back. And this gambling match was with the condition of 12 plus 1 years. And then the Pandavas were exiled. And now, when the Pandavas were exiled, what happened? That's very important to understand. See, we know 13 years later when the war happened, that time the Kauravas had how many Akshahunis with them and Pandavas had how many Akshahunis? 11 with the Kauravas. So now, is it that so many kings at that time were so evil that they would support Duryodhana? See, everybody has a basic sense of decency. And what Duryodhana did to Draupadi, this was so horrendous that any person with a basic sense of decency would have been appalled, disgusted, horrified. Who would want to ally with such a person? But that is the power of narrative. Narrative means what? That, see, if we don't see events in isolation. Whenever any event happens, we see it as a part of a story. And that story is called a narrative. So, what do I mean by this? That, say, if we hear about a crime happening in some part of the world, then we don't just see it as a crime happening. Oh, that part of the world is very dangerous. Maybe there the government is not that good. We always put some event within a bigger picture and we try to make sense of that. So what Duryodhana did was, while he was in the kingdom, while he was having the kingship, he did 3 things. First is, he performed a Vaishnav Yajna. Now, he had no interest in Vishnu, no respect for Vishnu as such, but he actually wanted to perform a Rajasuya Yajna. But the Brahmanas told him that you cannot do a Rajasuya Yajna while the previous Rajasuya Yajna performer is still alive. Then they said, you can do a Vaishnav Yajna. And by doing that Yajna, he tried to create an appearance that he was also very pious, very virtuous, very charitable. And he gave generous charity to the Brahmanas. He gave a grand reception to all the kings who came. And that way, he tried to create a good image of himself. I am also a religious person. I am also a good person. And then when the kings came, he told his side of the story. You may say, this is black and white. What is his side of the story over here? So he spun the story. See, Shakuni was very cunning. Shakuni's cunningness was not just in trapping Yudhishthira. He said that we had a full plan to play the game just as a game. But, so you could say, how could you disrobe a woman in public like that? So Duryodhana turned the whole story around and he said, what kind of man would ever gamble his wife? And a man who gambles his wife, who cannot take care of his own wife, how can such a person be the king of the world? Should such a person have any kind of kingdom at all? So he said that the whole gambling match was our plan to expose to the world how irresponsible Yudhishthir is. That Yudhishthir, everybody thinks that he is Dharmaraj, but he has no control over his senses. He has no sense of responsibility. He is a gambling addict. And in this way, he totally maligned Yudhishthir. So what happens is, what can seem as black and white? You did such a horrendous thing, but he completely turned it around. And he said, who would gamble his own wife? And because the Pandavas were in exile, the very close those who were very close to the Pandavas came to meet him in the forest. Meet them in the forest. Other kings, they would not come to meet, and the Pandavas would not go to the kingdom. Any kingdom, because they were supposed to be in exile. So Duryodhana was meeting all the kings. So what happens? If one side is telling their story and the other side is not speaking anything, then what happens? See, whoever tells the story wins the information war. See, there is an information war going on. Nowadays this word is common, but that is a strategy that is always there. So Duryodhana won over so many allies because he spun the whole story in his own way. And the third thing that he did was, because the Pandavas had so much wealth and their kingdom was his kingdom, so he could give enormous gifts and favors and be generous to everyone. So like in elections also, sometimes political parties give freebies. Those who are more populist, who give more gifts, people support them. So Duryodhana, by these three things, what did he do? On one side, the yajna, by the Vaishnava yajna, he created the perception of, I am a pious person. Then he spun the story. He spun the story means that he gave his own twist to the story and he made Yudhishthir seem to be like the bad guy. Rather than I being the bad guy, Yudhishthir is the bad guy. And then he used Yudhishthir's wealth to be populist. Populist means do things which will make you popular, even if they are not sustainable. So it's like, say, some country suddenly discovers some wealth. Some country which is relatively not very wealthy discovers oil or discovers gold, or now there are these rare earth minerals which have become very important for electronic items. Some country suddenly discovers those. Now the government did not do anything to manufacture them. It's just wealth that has come naturally. And then with that wealth you make a lot of money and you just give a lot of freebies to people. So that is a finite resource. You're not producing anything per se. You're just using what nature has given. But still, he had that wealth. So it was at one level, see, Yudhishthir slowly, now some people would come and meet Yudhishthir in the forest and he would get some news, not so much, but the whole world was thinking, what kind of person is he? And on top of that, when Yudhishthir was in the forest, at that time, the fortunes had changed so terribly. It's like somebody is a multi-millionaire and they invest money in one share stock or one share. I know one devotee in America, he was quite well to do and he invested all his money in crypto and everything he lost. And as if that was not bad enough, he lost all his money. At the same time, he lost his job. And at the same time, this current government came to power over there and he could not renew his visa. So now he had to leave everything and go back to India. So he's now still trying to find out a job or whatever. Sometimes when bad things happen, everything bad seems to happen at the same time. And it's very, very difficult to bear. So at such times, see, basically what happens when the wrong things happen, there are three levels of wrong things. One is atrocity, one is adversity. Second is atrocity. So adversity and atrocity, what is the difference between the two? Yes, adversity is natural, atrocity is created. See, now if a power supply goes out, that is adversity. If we came to know that our neighbor cut off our power supply, that is atrocity. So, among the two, which is more difficult to bear? Atrocity. Then if some person hurts us, how could you have done like this? So the Pandavas had suffered adversity in the sense that their father had died when they were young. But now the Kauravas were doing atrocities to them. That becomes much more difficult to bear. However, for a responsible person, there is one more pain that is even more difficult to bear. That is agony. Agony means where I have made a mistake. Somebody wanted to hurt me, but I made a mistake and I played into their hands. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have thought like this? How could I have acted like this? And that can be completely crushing. So, basically, Yudhishthir could have been in this situation. That yesterday we discussed about this LEAD approach. So we are not looking from the devotional perspective. Bhishma, when he talks with Yudhishthir, he will talk about the devotional perspective, and that we'll take on the morning classes. But here we are talking from the ethical perspective. So when he was in the forest, he meets different sages. He meets Markandeya, he meets other sages, and he asks them, what is happening in my life? Is there anyone who has suffered as much as I have suffered? Or more than what I have suffered? So, there Markandeya tells him the story of Lord Ram. There's a Lagu Sankshipta Ramayana is there. He said that Lord Ram was also exiled. He was also sent to a forest. And there the pain was more for him because it came not from his uncle but his father's side. His father stayed silent. And the betrayer was not a rival, a cousin, it was a mother figure for him. The pain was even more. And then he tells also the story of Nala Damayanti. It's a long story which I will not go into. But he also, Nala is also king who suffers a lot. So basically, the focus, my point is, without going to the stories, Yudhishthir has to struggle. How do I make sense of this? And then, somehow, by talking with the sages, by immersing himself in wisdom, he comes to peace with himself. But there are two people among their group of 6 people who cannot be peaceful. Can you guess who are those 2 people? Bhima and Draupadi, yes. So now, previously, when the Pandavas had gone into the forest, Kunti had been with them. From Varanavat, they had gone to the forest. But this time, when the Pandavas were exiled, at that time, they decided that Kunti, Vidura said Kunti is very old now. She will not be able to survive the forest life. So, let her stay with me. So, Mother Kunti was not there with them. So, the 5 Pandavas and Draupadi were there. And Draupadi and Bhima both were extremely angry, and at one time Draupadi just couldn't hold herself back. And see, sometimes what happens, say if we are disturbed about something, something has gone wrong, and we are disturbed about it, and we tell someone else, and that person says that's not a big deal, don't take it so seriously. Then what happens? First we are disturbed about what was wrong, and then we are disturbed that the other person is not disturbed. He said, why are you not taking this seriously? So that's what happens to Draupadi. Yudhishthir, how can you be just so peaceful? Those who humiliated us, those who robbed everything from us, they are living in prosperity and we are suffering here. And you are just so peaceful. So Bhima said that according to some calculations, Bhima is also not a fool. He says that words have different meanings. He says, in one meaning of the word Varsha, it means month. So we have already passed 13 months. let our 13 months be 13 years. And let us go and claim the kingdom. If they don't give us the kingdom back, we will attack them and we'll seize our kingdom back. So, they were very upset with him. And it's fully understandable. So, what did Yudhishthira say at that time? First of all, how does he come to accept himself? How does he get others to accept? This is where Yudhishthira expresses his faith in dharma. He says, dharmo rakshati dharma, as we say. That those who are virtuous, they will always be protected. And Draupadi says, where is the evidence for that? He says, we are suffering right now. Where are we being protected? So, he says protection will manifest, but not immediately. It will take time. And this is where I'll go into. So, but the thing is, as I said, we go back over here. We reject I never made a mistake. That is not healthy. Saying, I made a mistake and I am worthless. That is also not healthy. So, in between is that we accept our mistakes, but we also accept ourselves with our mistakes. Ourselves with our mistakes means that ultimately, see, just as sometimes we need to forgive others, we also need to forgive ourselves. And so, how do we accept ourselves with our mistakes? So, this is where I'll be talking about forgiving ourselves. And the principles of forgiving ourselves also apply to forgiving others. But let's look at this. See, in general, when we are going through life, so ultimately, when we look at forgiving ourselves, let's look at that first. Why is it required? There's a practical reason and there's a devotional reason. The practical reason is that we are our only resource. Suppose we have a car and that car doesn't work very well. It suddenly breaks down, it goes very slowly, it makes a lot of noise, it consumes a lot of fuel, but we can't buy another car right now. If that is the only car we have, we may get frustrated with it. But if we take an axe and break it, or we set it on fire out of frustration, then we will end up without any car, isn't it? The car may not be a very good car, but if that is the only car we have, then we have to use it as well as we can. So like that, we are our only resource. And if we are beating ourselves down, you are a fool, you are worthless, you are useless, then see, even God can't help us if we are not helping ourselves. We have to help ourselves so that God can help us. So it's like, if I am here, I was walking and now I fell down. Now if I have fallen down, now there should be a part of me which should lift myself up. Come on, get up now. But instead of that, if there is this is the healthy thing, but instead of that, I have fallen down. And then there is a part of me which is beating me. Is helping me lift up, is beating me. Then if I am beating myself, who is going to lift me up? Isn't it? So now, of course, I have to learn, okay, why did I fall down? How can I be careful so that I don't fall down again? But I cannot keep beating myself and think that that is a good thing. Because at a practical level, we are our only resource. Even if we are to take Krishna's help, ultimately, we have songs by our acharyas like Amara Jivan Sada Pape Rat. I am full of sin. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that. But in spite of talking about it like this, I am so sinful, I am so fallen, that does not stop him from taking shelter of Krishna. He doesn't think that I am so worthless that I can't even take shelter of Krishna. He says, rather, I am so fallen, Krishna, that therefore I so much need your shelter. And so faith in God also means faith in ourselves. That if I am a part of God, then I should have faith in myself. And that brings me to the devotional reason for forgiving ourselves. What is the devotional reason? That ultimately, if we are to love Krishna, then that means we are meant to love all the parts of Krishna. And if all the parts of Krishna are to be loved, then among all the parts of Krishna that exist in the world, in here also is a part of Krishna. So if I hate myself, if I loathe myself, if I am constantly angry with myself, then I cannot be loving Krishna, because I am hating a part of Krishna. So in that sense, now when we say we should forgive ourselves, we should be kind to ourselves, or we should love ourselves, now we should not love ourselves so much that we forget God. I was in America, I saw one t-shirt, it had a sticker, it had a sticker on it, it says, "You are perfect as you are." One boy was wearing that. And now, if you say you are perfect, then there is no improvement left, isn't it? It is, who can say I am perfect as I am? No, if somebody says I am perfect as I am, that means they are in perfect illusion, isn't it? We all have areas where we can improve. We can say that you are valuable as you are valued as you are loved as you are treasured as you are. That's fine, but you cannot say you are perfect as you are. We all have areas in which we can and we should improve. So we don't want to live in denial thinking that I am perfect. So at a devotional level, we need to love ourselves enough so that we can love Krishna. If we hate ourselves, see, like say if we come to the satsang and suppose we have a very bad relationship with someone, maybe some devotee we quarreled with them or whatever. And then when we come to the temple, we may be taking darshan of the deities, but while taking darshan of the deities, if we hear that devotee's voice, then immediately our whole consciousness will go there. And if that devotee is laughing, why is he so happy? Why is she so happy? We will get angry with their happiness. So raga and dvesha, both can be problems. So if somebody comes to a temple, but they're not interested in Krishna, they are maybe looking for a romantic partner among the people in the temple community. Now, if they have that kind of interest, then they will come and the raga, they will not be interested in Krishna so much as well as the other person. So that raga can be a problem, that attachment can be a problem, but dvesha, aversion, can also be a problem. And what applies to others also applies to ourselves. If we are hating ourselves or averse to ourselves, that will consume our thoughts. If we are always thinking, I am great, I am perfect, then that will also be a problem. See, when people have, generally, if any good story is there, what happens in good stories, that there is a hero, and that hero goes through a journey by which the hero also becomes better. Some talent is there, some talent is developed, some lessons are learned. So they may have some talent, but it has to be developed. But many modern movies, they have the idea that the hero is already perfect. And the only problem is the world doesn't know how great the hero is. That is a reflection of this big ego. See, the only problem in my life is that the people in my life don't know how great I am. That idea is a very ego-driven idea. And that actually shuts the door to improvement. So we don't want to go in that direction. But at the same time, we don't want to go in the other direction also, that I am worthless. So, what does Yudhishthir say that? He said, Dharma will always protect us. But we have to understand Dharma properly. So this is the point I talked about, forgiving ourselves. I'll talk about one last point I'll make about Dharma, what it means. So why devotionally forgive ourselves? Because we cannot love Krishna unless we are loving ourselves in a healthy way. Now there is a difference between forgiving and trusting. This is essential. If we don't understand this, we will make a terrible mistake. See, what is the difference between forgiving and trusting? Forgiving is for the past. Trusting is for the future. So, if anybody has hurt us, we should forgive them. Okay, you spoke like this to me, or you did like this to me, you did like this to me. I don't want to hold on to the past and stay stuck in the past. So, I'll forgive you. But at the same time, see, forgiveness can be given. But trust has to be earned. In the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the story of how Kamsa killed 6 of the children of Devaki right in front of her eyes. There are different ways to kill someone, but to kill a baby, that requires a horrible level of brutality. And to kill a baby in front of the parents, the level of brutality, is like we say, there is no humanity in such a person. But he did that. However, when the 8th child turned out to be Durga, now Kamsa himself was a Durga worshipper. So he said, my Devaki, if Durga is born from Devaki, Devaki must be a very special soul. And he said, what have I done? Such a special soul's children I killed. And he said, oh Devaki, oh Vasudeva, please forgive me for what I did. I'm a very sinful person that I killed my own nephews, I killed your children. And then somehow, there is in English, there's a phrase called apology, non-apology. That means, you apologize with one hand and then take away the apology with the other hand. Like typically, sometimes is one of the ways it says, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. That means I'm not sorry that I did something wrong, and you are such a hypersensitive person that what I spoke, if it hurt you, I'm sorry about that. So it's an apology, non-apology. So he said, but actually, you should not blame me. He said that it is the effect of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is such that even the Devatas speak lies now. The Devatas had said that your 8th child will be the cause of my death. And I foolishly believed the Devatas. And because they misled me, so I killed these children. So that the Devatas caused this to happen, it must be destiny. So please accept it. And please forgive me. Now it is described in the Bhagavatam that actually Vasudeva and Devaki forgave him. Say, how can you forgive someone who has killed their own children? That shows their saintliness. But, being saintly does not mean being stupid. So Vasudeva and Devaki told, they said, we forgive you. But Vasudeva did not say, actually, the 8th child was born was a boy, and I have taken him to Vrindavan, and I have kept him there. Did Vasudeva tell him that? No. Because, words are cheap. Anybody can say, I am sorry. But is that backed by actions? So Vasudeva forgave, but did not trust. Trust had to be earned. And Kamsa did not earn that trust. For a little time he had a change of heart. But then, again he started sending demons like Putana and others to kill Krishna. So, we can forgive others, but trust has to be earned. And the same thing applies for us also. See, even if we have committed some terrible mistakes in our past, we can't keep beating ourselves up for some mistakes. Sometimes some people live lifelong. If only I had taken that job instead of this job. If only I had done this instead of that. Even if it is a mistake. We'll talk about how in tomorrow morning session, next morning session, I'll talk about how Krishna's plan can act even through our mistakes. That we'll discuss later. But my point is, yes, we all sometimes make some mistakes, and that's okay. That we cannot keep holding those against ourselves. But at the same time, say we invested some money in some Ponzi scheme and we lost all the money. Now, we can beat ourselves up, but ultimately, okay, we have to again rise, we have to take care of our family, we have to start earning. We can't keep beating ourselves up. Sometimes what happens, some people lose some money, and then that was a bad thing, but they get so angry with themselves, and so what happens is, they may start drinking. And they become alcoholics, and that was one mistake, but becoming an alcoholic is a bigger mistake, isn't it? See, anger, when it goes outward, it becomes aggression. Anger, when it goes inward, it becomes depression. Aggression means what? Some people start speaking abusive words. Some people start hitting others. So when anger goes outward, it leads to aggression. But when anger goes inward, that means I am angry with, not that I am burying the anger, but I am angry with myself. Then if I am constantly beating myself, then I become depressed. I start feeling I can't do anything worthwhile. And if we are having that constant negativity towards ourselves, we can't live like that. And then to escape from that negativity, people may start just getting caught in alcoholism, caught in drugs, caught in video games, whatever it is. So the cure for anger is forgiveness. So now the point I was making is that even with respect to ourselves, we should always forgive ourselves for whatever mistakes we have done. If required, we can do some atonement or something like that, if it was a wrong activity that we had done. But eventually we have to forgive ourselves. And then at the same time, trusting ourselves is something entirely different. Maybe if we spend all our money in some scheme, then maybe if we earn money in future, don't keep it only in your account. Don't let yourself be the sole signatory. Let somebody else be involved. Keep some boundaries. We cannot trust ourselves in the same area. And one aspect of becoming trustworthy is acknowledging humbly when we are not trustworthy. See, we all have our weaknesses. And in certain situations, it's that we can't trust ourselves. And that doesn't mean we are completely untrustworthy. But some areas, in some Western countries, they are very soft on crime. They say, actually, why do people commit crimes? It's because people are poor. It's because people have not got opportunities. They did not get education. They did not get support. That's why they commit crimes. Now, there may be some truth to that. But the point is, therefore, they say that actually the police should not. In California, they have made a rule during the pandemic that if anybody breaks into a shop, like a supermarket or mall, and they steal anything below $750, the police would not even arrest them. What to speak of charge them or punish them, they would not even, there are 3 levels. First is you arrest them, and second you charge them, and then you punish them, sentence them. So even arresting was not done. And now people were not breaking into the supermarkets to take bread and stuff like that. They were taking luxury items, and they were selling them on eBay or Craigslist or whatever, and trying to make money out of them. But just below $750, they would take like that. So, what is that? Refurbished Louis Vuitton purses or refurbished iPhones or whatever. So the thing is that laws, say like fences or locks, locks can't stop thieves. Thieves will still break through locks and come. But locks can stop ordinary people from becoming thieves. Locks and laws, both. Everybody has a weak side. And if there are no consequences for bad actions, then everybody may succumb to it. So that's why those locks or laws, those are required in society. So similarly, we have to accept that there should be some locks in my life. If I have made a mistake, then I should accept certain boundaries within which I will act. That way, we can ourselves earn our trust with time. But the point is, so Yudhishthir Maharaj, he spoke to Draupadi and he said that in time, dharma will never abandon a person. But he also said that we will have to those who follow dharma may sometimes have to suffer. Don't abandon dharma, and don't think that dharma has abandoned you. So the last point I'll conclude with is, see, what is dharma? This could go on for 1 hour, but I'll try to complete this in 10-15 minutes. The word dharma has many different meanings. One meaning is that it is the right thing to do. And that is true. It is something. Right thing can be from an ethical perspective, right thinking from a functional perspective. Like investing money somewhere, it's our own money. Investing it somewhere is not unethical, but it may be still wrong. It's irresponsible if you invest it somewhere where it's not going to get a good product, good result. It's not a safe investment. So dharma is the right thing to do. Now when we talk about the right thing to do, what is the right thing to do? That is, each one of us belongs to a larger whole. So, okay, before I get into this, how many of you have questions today? Because yesterday we don't have much time for questions. Okay, 1. Fair enough. 2. We'll have time. So, dharma refers to the right thing to do. So, each one of us belongs to a larger whole. And when we belong to a larger whole, or when we participate in a larger whole, we need to do something for the larger whole. So, like if we are driving on the road, then we are a part of the road transport system. Then we have to follow the rules of traffic. That is dharma. Dharma is, it's not just a, so dharma is simply a functional principle. That is the way the world functions. It is a moral choice also, but it's something, a functional principle. That how do we, so if I go on the wrong side of the road, then what is going to happen? And I'll be arrested, or I'll be crashed, or I'll cause a crash, isn't it? If I'm going to be a part of the road transport system, I have to belong properly to that road transport system. Now, of course, there's another aspect to it, that the road transport system also has to give its part to me. Like some countries, what happens? Like nobody follows the traffic rules. In red signal, everybody keeps going. And one person stays there, that person becomes like a fool. Why am I staying over there? Isn't it? So the idea is that we do something to belong to the whole, to participate in the whole, and the whole also does something for us. So for example, if you are attending this class now you are belonging to the collective over here, you are participating in the collective. The way you participate in the collective is by paying attention. If say you keep your phone silent, you don't chit chat with the other people sitting next to you. But then if I represent the collective over here, I also have to do something. I should be speaking something that is meaningful. So if I demand that you pay attention, but I don't speak anything worth paying attention to, then you'll feel, why should I pay attention? So when the individual who belongs to the collective does dharma, and the collective also does dharma, that dharma leads to artha. Artha means something of value. So if you are paying attention and I am speaking something worth paying attention to, then something of value is created to this. If you follow the rules of traffic and the government and the traffic system is well arranged, and the artha is you travel smoothly and swiftly to the destination, smoothly, swiftly, safely to the destination. So like that, dharma leads to artha. That means when we participate harmoniously in a larger whole, then we get a result of value through it. And this principle applies everywhere. Now, if we are living in a particular country, that country has certain rules. And when we follow those rules, we pay taxes, we follow those rules, then we get something back. Then some artha happens. So dharma leads to artha. Dharma is a functional principle. So now with this understanding of dharma, so there are three things. There is prakriti. Okay, let me move down. There is prakriti. There is sanskriti. And there is vikruti. So Prakriti means nature. Sanskriti means culture. Vikruti means vulture. Vulture means what? The idea of a vulture is, vulture goes high into the sky but looks for flesh to eat. It doesn't look at the beauty of nature, it looks for flesh. So that is Vikruti. So the idea is that there are Prakriti, we live in Prakriti, we live in nature. Now on the foundation of nature we can build culture. But still we live in nature. And in nature, there is one simple rule of living in nature. And that is, might is right. Jiski lathi, uski bhais. So this is how nature works. A nature does not care that the deer is a very nice, pleasant, polite deer. If the deer does not run as fast as faster than the tiger will eat it. So might is right is the basic rule of Prakriti. Now, Sanskriti cannot reverse Prakriti. Sanskriti is built on the foundation of Prakriti. So that means if we belong to Prakriti, then we have to have might. Otherwise, those who are mightier than us will overpower us. So for example, we talk about cutthroat competition in the world. If we are working in a company, and if we don't meet the targets and somebody else meets the targets, then whenever there's retrenchment, we will be fired over there. So now we live in a world where physical might may not matter, but there's intellectual might, there's relational might, there's political might. It matters. Now, physical might also matters. One country can attack another country and overpower that country also. But the point is that Prakriti, the dharma of Prakriti is Shakti is what is matters. Whoever has power, that person wins. That is a simple rule. So this is itself dharma. Dharma is a functional principle of how to live in the world. So we live in Prakriti. In Prakriti means we have to have strength. Now Sanskriti goes slightly bigger. Sanskriti actually is, it is might plus virtue is right. It is that virtue is sadgun, good qualities. So it is might plus virtue is right. Sanskriti means that, say, if we were simply animals, then say if somebody is blind and they have to cross the road, nobody would help such a person. You are blind, you are unfit, you are simply a trouble. According to evolution theory, is survival of the fittest. Those who are unfit, eradicate them. That's what Hitler wanted to do. He wanted to eradicate all physically handicapped people. Then he wanted to eradicate all mentally retarded people. Then he decided that certain races, they themselves were they were actually malformed, and he considered Jews, Gypsies to be all of them. Wanted to eradicate them also. The idea is, we humans don't live according to nature alone. So that's why, for example, what happens in a responsible society, in Varnashram, for example, children, women, elders, brahmanas, cows, these are meant to be protected. But those who have to protect them, they have to have might. If they don't have might, they will not be able to protect them. So that's why Kshatriyas have to be powerful. So dharma does not mean thinking that, oh, I am virtuous and I'll be good. That's good enough. You have to be virtuous, but you also have to have might. Because Sanskriti is built on Prakriti. It is not built by denying Prakriti. So in Sanskriti, Prakriti what it is? Survival of the fittest. So survival of the fittest. In Sanskriti what happens? It is not survival of the fittest. It is sacrifice by the fittest. That sacrifice by the fittest. That means what? That if our country is attacked, then all the people who are fit will go out to fight. And they know they will be at the forefront. They might be killed first, but they are ready to sacrifice for that. So if there's a fire breaks out somewhere, the firefighters may rush into the fire. So they are ready to sacrifice. But the sacrifice has to be done by those who are fit, isn't it? So if the firefighter is not fit, and the firefighter will not be able to fight the fire, isn't it? Instead of saving anybody else, somebody else will have to go and save the firefighter only, isn't it? So the point is that we cannot deny the reality of Prakriti, but we can build on it. Now Vikruti, what does it mean? Vikruti means that there is might plus vice is right. If those people who are vicious, those who have all bad qualities, if they gain power, then they will rule. So again, they have to be the fittest. So fittest could be in terms of political fitness, it could be in terms of technological fitness, it could be physical fitness, intellectual fitness, whatever fitness we are talking about. But the point is that we live in a world where there is a spiritual reality. We may say if might is right, then what is the use of practicing bhakti? Does God not intervene? Yes, God intervenes. But God's intervention is not to change the rules of nature. Krishna's intervention was not that Pandavas, you don't have to be powerful. I'll fight all your wars for you. No, I give you the talent, I'll give you the opportunity, you become powerful. Krishna did not tell Prabhupada, that, you sit in Vrindavan, I will make all Americans into devotees. No, you go there. You have to be resourceful. We have to become instruments. So the point is that we have to, if we are to function in the world and if we are to be effective. So dharma is not just a moral principle. Like yesterday I gave the example. If I am a vegetarian and I am thrown into a bullfight, I can't tell the bull I am a vegetarian. If I am there in that bull pit, I have to function in a way that is harmonious with that. If I am not good enough, I have to run away from there. I can't expect because I am a vegetarian, the bull will not attack me. So whichever larger whole we are a part of, we have to learn to play that game. We have to learn how to belong to that. And that is what Yudhishthira did. So, in one sense, we could say that before the war or before the exile and all that incident, Yudhishthira believed in the good intentions of Dhritarashtra. He believed that Dhritarashtra did not really want to harm me. Maybe he is a little partial to Duryodhan, but he's still my uncle. But then he realized he cannot trust people like that. Not to that degree unless they earn the trust. So it was a mistake and he acknowledged his mistake. So what did they do? So Yudhishthira himself, so if might is right, then what happened? All three of them. Yudhishthira, he learned gambling. Why? Because if he was challenged again, he should be prepared. Bhima, he practiced in the forest. He became better at mace fighting. He fought against demons. He fought against animals. He protected the Pandavas and the sages, but he improved. And especially Arjuna, he got celestial weapons. That he went to the Himalayas, the tapasya, and he got celestial weapons. And in that way, all three of them increase their might. And in that way, they prepared themselves for the future. So we understand, okay, I made a mistake, but then how can I make sure that I don't make that mistake again? What will it require for me to do that? And that's what they did. In that way, practicing dharma doesn't just mean being moral, it also means being functional. And functional means we have to know how best what is required for functioning in this particular situation. That Srila Prabhupada was very, very functionally precise. When Prabhupada wanted to build a planetarium in Mayapur, he told the devotees that the Ganga floods over here, the soil over here is not very solid, so we will have to have a special foundation over here. And Prabhupada was not naive. Prabhupada, when he built the temples in Vrindavan and Mayapur, now normally when we have temples, we will have people coming and giving donations, and that's how temples run. But Prabhupada knew that in Vrindavan and Mayapur there are already so many other temples, and we may not get donations over there. So Prabhupada said, let's build guest houses. And those guest houses will be sources of earning for us. And that way, Prabhupada had faith in Krishna. But faith in Krishna doesn't mean in the name of faith in Krishna we become impractical. Isn't it? Prabhupada made grounded, realistic plans. So Prabhupada's eyes were high up in the sky. Sorry, head was high up in the sky, but his feet was firmly on the ground. His feet were firmly on the ground. And feet firmly on the ground means we are realistic in terms of how we act. So Yudhishthir, by the end of the... So when Yudhishthir spoke these things, that to Draupadi, he said, we should never abandon dharma, but we also need to understand what is dharma. So dharma is not that if the other person is attacking, you think I am dharmic, so I'll be safe. No, if the other person is attacking, either I have to become a protector or I have to have some people who will be protectors. So dharma means we have to understand how we can belong intelligently, belong harmoniously to the larger whole that we are a part of. And to the extent we do that, to that extent from that dharma, artha will come. And that's how we will be able to flourish in our life individually and collectively. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our topic today was primarily about forgiving ourselves, and we discussed this based on how Yudhishthira responded to the pain of having been exiled. So I talked about it in 3 parts. First was I talked about for a responsible person, adversity is very difficult to deal with. Because why did something bad happen to me? Atrocity is even more difficult. I'm a good person. Why would somebody do like this to me? But agony is, I am supposed to be a good person. How could I have made such a mistake like this? How could I act like that? That becomes even more difficult to bear. So he faced the situation, and then on top of it, what happened was, there was Yudhishthir's own guilt that was there. But then, along with that, there was Duryodhan's opportunism. Opportunism means, we discussed how he did 3 things. He did a yajna to act as if I am pious. He performed the Vaishnava yajna. Then he spun the narrative in his favor by saying that how could any responsible person ever gamble his own wife? And would you want such a person to be a king? And then finally, he also was populistic. He used the wealth of the Pandavas to give a lot of gifts and earn favors. So Duryodhan was playing the game well. So Yudhishthira also had to play that game. So what did he speak about? We talk about accepting ourselves. Accepting ourselves is very important. And what does it mean? Discuss 2 extremes. We reject our mistakes. That means we deny that I didn't do anything wrong. That is not going to work, because we all make mistakes sometimes. But the other is we reject ourselves because of our mistakes. And that is also, so that rejecting ourselves because of our mistakes is in tamoguna. That is toxic, because this is where will become depression. Here will be rajas, we'll live in denial, keep creating trouble. So what we do is, we accept our mistakes, and then we accept ourselves with our mistakes. So what does accepting ourselves with our mistakes mean? We discussed that for this, we need to forgive ourselves. So I talked about forgiveness in 2 parts. Why forgive ourselves? The 2 reasons. One is practical, that we are our only resource. And if we are beating ourselves up, then who is going to lift us up? And there is a devotional reason. If we love Krishna, we love all the parts of Krishna, then we should love even this part of Krishna. And then I also differentiate between forgiving and trusting. That trusting is for the future. Trusting has to be earned. Forgiving is to be given always for the past. But trusting is to be earned, and that's what comes in the future. So we should also accept some boundaries for trust before we can start trusting ourselves. And then lastly, based on Yudhishthira-Draupadi's conversation, we discuss the concept of dharma. So dharma means belonging harmoniously. That whichever larger unit we are a part of, we do something for that larger unit, and that larger unit does something for us. And through such dharma, what happens? Artha comes. We are able to get something of value. And then we talk about dharma not just as a moral principle, a moral choice, but also a functional principle. It is just the way the world functions. And then I talk about 3 levels. Prakriti. Prakriti means might is right. Survival of the fittest. Sanskriti is what? Might plus virtue. So might plus virtue. That means we need to understand that even if we have to have good society, but the good society also will require laws, will require accountability. Vikruti will be where there will be might plus vice. That will be a demoniac society. So it is that when we want to be a part of a larger society, we Kshatriyas cannot expect that I am a charitable person, so everything will be good for me. Kshatriyas have to be also martially powerful. And similarly, in our particular role, we need to acquire might. Not in the egoistic sense, but in the sense that this is the way I can do my dharma and I can do my service to Krishna. So in tomorrow's session, which will be our last session, we'll talk about acceptance in another sense. One was accepting our past mistakes. But the other is accepting that sometimes life just does not give us any good choice. And sometimes we have 2 choices and both are bad choices. Then we have to choose the least bad choice. So sometimes good people have to do bad things. So today's was about accepting when good people do bad things. But sometimes we have to accept that good people may also have to do bad things. And how to accept that, that we'll be discussing tomorrow evening. And tomorrow morning and after tomorrow morning, we'll discuss about how, while we are trying to do making our choices, our dharma we are trying to do, how do we see Krishna's role in our life? And Krishna's plan for our life, we'll discuss based on the Bhishma Yudhishthira Samvad in the 9th chapter of the 1st canto of the Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you once again, Prabhu, for very deeply trying to analyze and then giving that information to us. So one of the things which was greatly intrigued me over the period was about where is the thin line of self-esteem for a Vaishnava practice in respect to humility. So because we feel that both are mutually contradicting. How do we understand that?
How does self-esteem work for a devotee? Also has to cultivate humility. See, often we think of humility and its opposite as ego. So we think of things as dual. But actually it's not dual, it is a triad over there. There are 3 things. My view of myself. How do I look at myself? At one extreme is ego. At the other extreme is insecurity. And in between the 2 is humility. So ego is where I know everything, I can do everything, I am everything, I am God. Insecurity is I know nothing, I can do nothing, I am nothing. So ego is Mayavad, insecurity is Shunyavad. I am everything and I am nothing. But humility is, I am something. Mamaiv amsho jiva loke. Krishna is the supreme reality. I am a part of that supreme reality. So I am something. I am something. I know some things and I can do some things. So so self-esteem, if it helps us to see that, okay, I have some gifts, I have some intelligence, and let me use that properly. But if that self-esteem goes towards self-congratulation or self-aggrandizement, where it becomes ego. So it's like, I am a part of a bigger reality. And as a part, I have a role, and I will play that role well. So I should not be insecure about my part. It's like, suppose somebody is a part of the Indian cricket team. Then if they are a part of the Indian cricket team, then they have a part in the Indian cricket team. So now, of course, people can be dropped from the Indian cricket team. But Krishna says, Mamaivamsho jiva loke jiva bhutaha sanatanaha. Krishna says, I will never drop you from my team. You will always be a part of my team. So in that sense, a devotee can always have security. A devotee should never be insecure. So humility is not insecurity. Humility is not thinking I am worthless. Humility is thinking that, yes, I have worth and my worth is fully manifested when I learn to serve Krishna. Okay? Thank you. Yes, Mataji, there was a question there? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I want to understand one fact based on this. We made a mistake. We have accepted it. Okay, this was a mistake, and it was a verbal mistake. Unfortunately, by mistake, we have hurt someone who is very close to us. Now, if we want to rectify it, it's not that easy because it were words, and it's already gone from us. But still we want to apologize. We did apologize. We don't know either it was accepted by the other person or not. It will be shown in the behavior, of course, but how to rectify it to make sure that this is not gonna happen in the future, and also to make the relationship again back to normal.
Okay. So if we have apologized for a mistake, say a verbal mistake, we said something which we should not have said, and how can we improve the relationship, because we don't know whether the other person has accepted or not, has accepted the apology. See, ultimately, we can't control other people's actions. But broadly, we can do three things. First is, acknowledge that it was a mistake. So, acknowledge to ourselves and acknowledge to others. And then there has to be a clear apology. And then we do what we can to amend. Apology is very cheap. See, sometimes what happens is, so when I'm saying acknowledging is more to the self. It is in my mind I am acknowledging. Apology is in words. And amend is in actions. So what happens sometimes, we may just jump to the apologizing without acknowledging itself. Then what happens is, we are ourselves not going to change. And we may go to apologizing, but we will not go beyond to amending. And the other person will not trust us. So amends could be that if we have spoken hurtfully, then we speak some genuine words of appreciation, not just flattery to get it over. Actually look for some good quality, good thing in that person and appreciate that genuinely. And we may have to do it repeatedly. Be there for the person when they need us. And somehow we have to create some kind of filters for ourselves. That, see, one thing which I have found very helpful is pausing. I see, when I was growing up, I was very interested in words. So I developed quite a good vocabulary. But when I was growing up, I also had a bit of a temper. Now, having a bad temper is a problem, but having a bad temper and a good vocabulary, that's a deadly problem. Because when somebody gets angry, most people, they just start yelling and screaming and they become incoherent. But if somebody has a good vocabulary, they have good analysis, they can be so sarcastic. They can really be very hurtful. So what I realized is that I was hurting a lot of people. And I just didn't want to do that. So one of the things which I found very helpful is pause. That now most of the time I'm traveling, I have a room in Mumbai, but I spend about 10 days a year over there. So most of my work is by email or by phones. So if somebody has done something which has really made me angry, and immediately I'll write an email, I'll dictate a message. And what happens is, I will write or dictate, but I will not send it for one day. If I keep it inside only, it will burn me. But if I send it outside, it will burn the other person. So I speak it out or I write it, but I try as much as possible not to send it for one day. And many times within that one day only, that other person sends a message, either they apologize or they clarify or they give a big picture. Or if I hear it once again or read once again after one day, the temper has gone down a little bit, then I can say, hey, I'm being too harsh over here. I don't got enough information. This could be phrased a little softly. I may still send the message, but then it is much softer. And then the chance of reconciliation is better. So, see, life is such that whenever we are working with anyone, we are relating with anyone, they will hurt us and we will hurt them. So to say I will never become angry with anyone is unrealistic. So that's why it's important to differentiate between anger and aggression. Anger is the inner emotion. Aggression is the outer expression. We cannot avoid anger completely. Because see, life is difficult. And many things need to be done in a particular way. And when things are not done in that way, we may think it's very important, the other person may not think it's important. And therefore they may get angry. Or we may get angry with them because they don't do it that way. So what happens is, we have to, we can't just express our anger. We can't just express it. We can't just repress it. So what pause helps us to do is to process it. That process it, okay, what is the fact over here? What is my own temper speaking over there? And then when we speak, we are able to process it and speak it, then it's easier to make sure that we don't do the same thing again. Okay? Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Mahabharata ki, Jai Gaur Premanande.
Chaitanya Charan Das Prabhuji ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So as Prabhu has announced, tomorrow the class continues. Tomorrow we have a special session in the morning. Krishna's plan in our life, and based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. That will be 2 sessions tomorrow morning.